Okay, hello. So my name's Jane Stevenson.
And I'm Bethan Ruddock.
And we're from the Archives Hub, which is another UK aggregator for archives, bringing together descriptions of archives across the UK. What we thought we'd talk about today is how we get users to engage with something like the Archives Hub, which is a digital destination providing metadata. We don't have a lot of the beautiful kind of images that a lot of people have. We're providing the metadata to researchers, but how do we get people to engage with the Archives Hub? So we decided today that rather than talk about the Archives Hub service per se, we would talk a little bit more about the Archives Hub Top 10 for user engagement. So this is our top of the pops for the Archives Hub user engagement.
And at number 10, we have coming in the personal touch. Thank you. One-to-one. This is about actually talking to people, the sort of engagement that you get with an archivist in a reading room, that kind of thing, where you're talking to people face-to-face, one-to-one. Not always face-to-face, but individually. It's brilliant because it's specific, it's relevant. You know exactly what sort of help the person needs and what they want to know because you're interacting with them on that individual level. It's personal. It creates a personal connection, and that makes it memorable. You're much more likely to remember a personal conversation that you've had with someone, whether that's a one-on-one chat help, than something you've just read on a website. But it does have its downsides. It's one-to-one, it's low reach, it takes one of our time and one of your time, and that means that you can't scale it up particularly easily. And it's often done on the fly. You might have time to prepare for a conversation like this if you've got a research appointment coming in, but quite often it's just conversations in passing or the phone rings and you pick it up and suddenly you have this research question. So for this sort of interaction, the effort is fairly low, but the impact is fairly low as well because it's not scalable in that way.
And coming in at number 9, we have conference presentations. And here we are giving a conference presentation, something we do quite a lot of and we really enjoy. But what about conference presentations in terms of getting people to engage with our service? Well, it's great because you can give a crafted message, as we're trying to do today. People are physically present, which always helps with engagement when you can talk to people physically. You can ask questions, which you may well do at the end. We have a somewhat captive audience. Hopefully you won't all get up and leave, so we have a captive audience. And also, hopefully, we can captivate the audience with our message. So it can be quite a good way of reaching out, quite a good way of user engagement. However, there can be a sense that doing conference presentations is quite fleeting. When you think about it, we all see good presentations, but if you go to a conference, there's a lot of presentations, you see a lot of stuff. It can be quite difficult to remember all the things that you've heard and all the things that people have told you. You also may not find that you stand out, unless, of course, you have something like a gimmick that helps you to stand out from the crowd. That can be quite a good way of getting people to engage with you. Sometimes the presentation you give may just simply not be relevant to the people that you're talking to. Kind of bad luck scenario, I suppose. And, of course, I have to say that sometimes we all know this. We don't necessarily find presentations totally enthralling, and they can be somewhat forgettable. I have to say this conference has been absolutely brilliant. I think I can remember all the presentations I've been to. But that can be an issue. Therefore, for us, conference presentations, well, the effort is kind of fair to middling. Preparing for a conference takes a fair amount of time and effort. But the impact is usually fairly good, although sometimes not. I guess we've all gone and given a presentation at a conference and you come away feeling, well, maybe I didn't quite fit in there, maybe my message wasn't quite what people wanted to hear. So, but it's not bad for the amount of effort you put in.
Thank you. Coming in at number 8, it's time to look in your spam folder, ladies and gentlemen. It's mailing lists. Mailing lists. We're probably all on them. They can be a blessing, they can be a curse. When you're thinking about posting to a mailing list and for that kind of interaction, they have a wide reach. Some of them have thousands of subscribers. And they're usually quite targeted. They can have, people don't just sign up for random mailing lists, I hope. They usually sign up for the list because they have some interest in what's going to be posted and what's going to be discussed. It's direct delivery. You get directly into people's inboxes or spam folders. And so you know that you are likely to get pairs of eyes on what your message. And it allows for discussion as well. Sometimes you'll see things that go out to lists and they do have a resounding silence, but often as well there's whole discussions start up, especially on a Friday afternoon, I tend to find. And you suddenly get a lot of interaction going on. The downside is that there is a lot of content posted to mailing lists, and you might find that a lot of it isn't relevant to you, and that it's resulting in email overload. So it can be quite easy. You think that you're probably getting this direct interaction with people, but it might be that you're going directly into a folder, that they simply don't open the emails from a certain mailing list because it's too much for them to cope with, or they know that there have been a lot of not relevant messages on the list, and so your message can get lost in all the noise that's out there. So the effort is fairly low to middling. It doesn't take that much time to interact with the mailing list, and the impact, again, we're looking at sort of medium-ish. It can be higher and it can be very low, so overall quite medium.
Okay, forget the birdie song. Coming in at number 7, it's Twitter. Okay, so Twitter, a lot of people have been posting tweets at this conference, and on the Archives Hub we see Twitter as a very good way to engage with people, so that's why we've got it at number 7 there. We have a Twitter feed that a lot of people follow. I'm glad to say we've now got over 13,000 followers, so we're doing quite well. We've built up quite a community with using Twitter. So for us and for everybody, obviously Twitter has that instant feel. It's very current. It's concise, it's quick to do. You can do stuff on the day, at the time. You're there on the spot when the news is breaking. So that's quite handy. It can have a very wide reach. Obviously, people can follow you at the click of a button. And as I say, we're doing quite well with our followers, and we follow many of our followers, and we kind of interact with them. So a lot of the followers, they do participate, and we do discuss things with them. On the other hand, it can be actually quite good for people if they just want to lurk and observe and pick up what you're saying to them. So with Twitter, the good thing is that you can kind of create a community, like we've created a 2-day DCDC community here, and a lot of us may go back and have a look at some of the tweets, have a look at some of the links that have been posted and so forth. And we often find we do that with the Archives Hub with certain conversations that we have there. And I've been having a conversation with people about wine this afternoon as well, which got quite interesting. Another good reason to use Twitter, and another reason why it can be quite engaging, is its informality, and also it allows you to kind of use humour to get your point across, and we do tend to try and do that with the Archives Hub and with the Hub Twitter feed. However, some of the disadvantages of using Twitter, it does have that sense of being superficial, somewhat fragmented, transient, it comes and it goes, you get so many posts, here they are, and then they're gone, and they're followed by other posts, and there can be something of a sense of overload. Obviously, with it being quite terse, that can sometimes be a disadvantage as well as an advantage. And sometimes there can be some kind of a sense that you're either in the Twitter crowd or you're not. However, overall, we found this to be a very good means for user engagement for the Archives Hub. And the thing is that the effort isn't too bad. Maybe sustaining the effort, as we've had to do over the years. We've had a Twitter feed for a long time. That takes a bit more effort, but on a day-to-day way, it's quite a small amount of effort for a reasonable amount of impact.
Thank you. Coming in at number 6, we're going to invite you to read all about it. It's our blog. Our blog has been going for longer than our Twitter account. It was started many years ago. And one of the advantages of a blog is that it can be current and relevant as Twitter can, but you get a chance to go much more in depth. You're not constrained to 140 characters or even 140,000 characters. You can go as in depth as you like, and you can cover a wide variety of issues. We talk about all sorts of things on our blog, and Jane in particular is very good at engaging with things that impact the community and the profession as a whole, and getting good feedback on that. And feedback is one of the important things about the blog. We don't just post things and then turn the comments off. We like to get people to respond and to interact with us, and it's a forum, again, for that kind of discussion. The disadvantage, as I'm sure many of you who have blogs know, is do blog hits really equal engagement? You know, we get quite a lot of people who might come along and look at a single blog post and then go away, and we have no idea whether they've found what they're looking for, whether they're in any way satisfied, whether they have any more idea about the Archives Hub or the subject they were interested in, whether they'll ever come back to the Archives Hub. It's really a bit of a disconnect there. So we can and do get thousands of blog hits, but we don't know what sort of real impact that's having for us as the service and for the users, whether it's actually satisfying any sort of need. So the effort is fairly medium. It can be quite time-consuming and effort-consuming to write a blog post, but it's not too bad. And the impact, again, we're really not entirely sure. If anyone knows how to find out, we'd love to hear that.
Okay, so at number 5, we have some great new sounds. It's innovative projects. So we've actually put innovative projects quite high in our list. We've been doing quite a lot of projects. Obviously, one of the advantages of being an aggregator is you've brought the data together of all these different archives that we represent. And what we want to try to do is think about how we can benefit with this critical mass of data. So we've had a recent innovative project this year, an AHRC-funded project called Exploring British Design, which has been really interesting. We're just about to launch the website. That's about different ways that users can research, using the subject of British design as the key. We've looked at how we can have a more entity relationship-based means of allowing people to search, how we can define relationships. It's been very interesting. So, innovative projects, you can do something that is very eye-catching. You can really engage people in that way with a project like this. And one of the really important things, and I'm sure other people in the audience have found this, it's often quite difficult to find the time to disseminate, to actually go out and promote when you're doing all your other work. But quite often, with a project like this, dissemination is actually part of what you're funded to do. That's one of the reasons these sorts of projects are really important to us, because getting out there, the outreach, talking to people is part of the project. These sort of things can positively disrupt the way researchers think, and this Exploring British Design is a good example of that. We've engaged a lot of people who are academic researchers within design. They've asked us questions about it. They've given us feedback about it. It's allowed them to think differently about how archives can come into this particular subject area. And of course, really importantly, when you're looking for funding for an innovative project, you want to make it user-led in order to get the funding. So you're very much thinking about how to engage people and what they really need. So this can be very fulfilling. However, as many of us will know, doing something innovative is always unpredictable. And sometimes when you write the specification for what you want to do and you send it off to the funder, you kind of spec it quite high. You think you're going to be able to do a lot of really great things, and it doesn't always work out that way. So you've set up expectations that you can't always meet. And of course, one of the key things with anything like this is whether you can sustain it. We think about that quite a lot on the Archives Hub, whether we can pull something like this project that we've done in and make it part of the ongoing service, and that's a really important thing. So it's quite interesting with innovation because the effort is nearly always very high, but in terms of impact, sometimes the impact can really go higher. It can have a really good return on the investment. You've done the right thing, it's worked well. But you've always got that risk with innovation, as I think people were talking about yesterday, that it just doesn't quite work as you intended. So it may be that the impact feels like it's less than the effort that you've put into it.
At number 4, we've got You Get Around with workshops. Workshops. At the Archives Hub, we run workshops for researchers, usually in collaboration with universities, and also for contributors and potential contributors. And they're great because they're a chance for us and for our users to spend in-depth quality time with each other. We get to hear about what people's real research and use needs are, and they get, targeted information from us. It's personal contact. Again, it's so important to have that, to build up those relationships in that way. And they can ask us specific questions, we can answer specific questions, and we can do a bit of user research sort of on the fly while we're there as well. Some of the disadvantages, they're limited scale. There's only a limited number of people that we can talk to at once. And once you go beyond a certain number, you lose the personal touch, you lose that targeted interaction, and it becomes more like a mini conference presentation. And they don't suit everyone. Not all researchers and not all users want to come to these kind of workshops. And as Joe mentioned, the Dunning-Kruger effect, lots of them don't know that they might need to come to a workshop or what they might get from being there. So it's certainly not a format that would reach every target audience. So the effort is fairly medium. Once you've done a workshop a few times, the general preparation itself is fairly similar, so that's good. But the impact can be very high because people are getting the very targeted interaction and advice that they need.
Okay, so now we're up to the top 3 of our Archives Hub top 10 of user engagement. Featuring a cast of thousands, coming in at number 3, it's features. So, what I mean by features is the features that we have on the Archives Hub. We've got a few people here from various performance and dance archives, and actually these are a few shots that show some of the features that we've had around that kind of subject. So the Archives Hub, we have monthly features. They're on our homepage, then they obviously stay on the website. We have different ways that people can search for them. So they're a really useful way for us to engage with people. The great thing I think about features is that they are subject focused. So if you have a feature on dance, then you can draw in researchers who have a particular interest in that kind of subject area. It pulls them in. It's like, yes, this is the sort of thing I'm interested in, and hopefully it takes them in through to the archives and through to our contributors' collections. Our features, as I said, are permanently available, so they'll be on the homepage for a while, but then they stay on the website forever. They're written to be user-friendly. They're written to engage a broad audience. They have a good aspect of kind of serendipity. This will allow people that maybe, if you take something like dance, they think they know what is out there, but maybe if they have a look at a feature, it might draw them into some other collections, some new stuff we've got on the hub that they weren't aware of. Very, very importantly, they're search engine friendly, and our features come up very high in search engine results. And so they're very successful in drawing people into archives that may not necessarily be looking for archives. That might not be what they're looking for. They're looking for a subject area or a person, and they're drawn into the hub features. And we hope they're visually engaging. It gives us the chance to have a few pretty pictures rather than the metadata that we so often have. Not too many downsides with features, really. Maybe really around the idea of expectations. If you have a feature about something like dance history, it's not comprehensive. It's not going to point you to all the archives that are out there relating to dance, for example. It's a snapshot and it's selective. So that's really the main downside. I don't think there are particularly any other downsides. So the good thing for us, particularly with the features now, they've become very popular. So a lot of our contributors are writing the features for us. Therefore, the effort actually has gone down in the last year. So it's a very reasonable effort for a pretty high kind of impact.
It's getting tense now as we get into the top 2. And so at number 2, we've got that so sweet mix of interoperability. interoperability is about making our data work, your data, work beyond the Archives Hub, about making it reusable and increasing its potential. So getting it out there into different places, into different interfaces that can meet different researcher needs, so that people don't necessarily have to come to the Archives Hub or even know about the Archives Hub to benefit from our data. And some of that's around things like making sure that we have good quality data, that adheres to certain standards, but it unlocks the potential that's hidden within a lot of this metadata. So it might not always look like very interesting data, but what can be done with it is extremely interesting. The problem is you have to make sure that that is then done with it. It's all very well saying, oh yes, you know, our data adheres to it's created to these international standards, we've made it open data, it's usable. Isn't that good? If no one's doing anything with it, then actually it's not that good. So we have to try and make sure that not just us, but you know, the community as a whole, I think we have an onus on us to where people are putting out open data sets, to look at them and think, well, can we use these? What can we do with this data? Not just to let it sit in these, what are still silos if it's not being used, even if they're open silos. So the effort can be variable. You know, adhering to standards can be difficult, especially when you're first doing it. After a while, you get into practice, you have processes in place which make that easier. But then making sure that something is done with the data, that impact actually happens, that takes a whole extra set of effort.
Right, so now we come to our number one, and still at the top, and I guess always at the top for us in terms of user engagement. Can you guess what it is? Comprehensiveness. Oh, yes. So, actually, when we put this presentation together, in some ways, this is kind of what we wanted to lead up to. We think a lot about user engagement, about how we can engage with people, because we run an online service. We sit in an office. We don't even have archives. We don't even have digital archives. We just have the metadata. We have the metadata that we've brought together for all these collections across the country. So in order to engage people in the best possible way, we need to be comprehensive. This is a Wordle just showing some of the search terms that people used in 1 week in the Hub. I just had a look at 1 week in the logs and picked out some of the search terms that people use to show the variations in how people come into the Hub, all the sorts of different things that they're looking for. So, comprehensiveness. The biggest thing for us is that we need to get search engine traffic, we need to be search engine friendly, and that drives people into the Archives Hub, and a huge amount of the people that come into the Archives Hub. And I should say we do know that the searches in the Hub go up as a result of this. So this isn't just people necessarily. There are people that come in from Google and then leave, but we do know that being open to search engines does mean that people spend more time there, a certain proportion of people spend more time there and do start searching within the Archives Hub. So, comprehensiveness, you get a breadth of subjects. It means that people's expectations hopefully are more likely to be fulfilled, because what they're looking for, you hope they'll find something related to the subject that they're interested in, which drives up their satisfaction, which means they return, they engage with a service like the Archives Hub again and again. And with a critical mass, with a large mass of content, you have so much more increased potential to do something useful with the content, to do all sorts of different things with the content, say subject-based portals or anything that you might think of. So there aren't really downsides as such. It's more the fact that you have to think about expectations when you're thinking about comprehensiveness. Unfortunately, we can't just say, yes, the Archives Hub is comprehensive. That kind of doesn't really mean anything. We know there are backlogs with archival cataloguing, and it takes quite a while for things to come through to us. So actually, we have a breadth of subjects, but it's never going to be fully comprehensive. That sounds like car insurance. It's never going to be fully comprehensive, but being as comprehensive as possible is what engages people. So actually, the interesting thing about this one for us is the effort is quite high in terms of being comprehensive, in terms of pulling stuff in. It has been quite high. But what we're trying to do over this year, the work that we're doing, is to try and drive that down, because that's what we spend most of the time doing. And if we can drive down, minimise the effort of bringing stuff in and being more comprehensive, the impact is huge for us. And don't just take my word for it. What I can tell you is on all of our surveys that we've done every year for quite a few years now, always when we ask researchers what is most valuable to you about this service, you may not be able to see it, but the large blue on the left, the highest one, is always comprehensive coverage, always that. It's never tagging, it's never annotation, it's not even images, it's always comprehensive and detailed descriptions. That's what people want the most. Not saying they don't want other things, of course, but that's what they prioritise. And by giving them that, we hope to create a worthwhile service. And luckily, we found over the years, people have always said, yes, the Archives Hub saves me time. I come here, a lot of the time I get what I want. I would say my work would take longer without having the Archives Hub. People can come to the hub and then they can go out to whichever archive repository they find that has collections that meet their needs. So that's really our raison d'etre in a lot of ways. So here's just a few quotes to kind of back that up from a lot of the surveys that we've done. I most value that it is comprehensive, free and accessible worldwide. Looking for your subject, something that is subject-based, something that is you cross-search. It's not just a single repository. You can cross-search. You don't have to figure out all the different catalogues. I most value, spelt wrong, that's not me because it's a quote, so. I most value the sheer breadth of material and archives that are catalogued. So we know time and time again that's what people want, and that's what we need to put top of our list. And with that, I've been Jane Stevenson. And Adrian Stevenson has been providing the Top of the Pops theme tune. I hope everyone's aware that that's the Top of the Pops theme tune.